bedroom to ask them what they were gonna have for dinner. So as she's leaving her parents' bedroom, she bumps into her friend on the stairs. When she saw her friend was looking down the stairs just waving goodbye at nothing. There was nothing down there. And then her friend's like, "Oh, I just bumped into your grandmother. I didn't know she lived here with you guys too." She said that she immediately gets goosebumps and goes down the stairs and her friend follows after her. Once down there, she looks at her friend and says, "Hey, only I live here with my parents. I don't know who you're talking about or who you saw." She said the moment that her friend just got pale and like didn't say anything, she was almost in shock. After her friend calms down a little bit, she says that when she was sitting in the living room, she saw this older lady come out of his bedroom down there. And when the older lady saw her, she just smiled and waved hello at her. She never stopped, she just waved, and that lady just kept walking. And of course, ever since then, her friend never wanted to stay alone in any bedroom of her house again. She explains that now that she's older and adult, strange things still continue to happen in her house. I'm not gonna lie, if I was her friend, I would have never came back. Because what the fuck do you mean you live alone here with your parents? I mean, her friend did warn her though. She warned her. They didn't believe her. Anyway, what do you guys think? Would you have stayed the night there again?
Spooky story time. A follower named Lynn sent me the story, and we're going to call it My Friend John. Lynn says that when she was about 6 years old, she had an imaginary friend. Everybody knew about it. Her mom knew about it. But she thought it was pretty normal for a child to have an imaginary friend, so she didn't really think anything of it. Everything is going normal, and then suddenly things get weird. Lynn started to draw his name and pictures of him everywhere. His name was John. And when she drew him, it was different every time. One time she drew him without, other times torn apart and held together with tape and bandages. Very disturbing. One day, her aunt is babysitting her, and she looks out the window and she sees that Lynn is playing with somebody. She goes outside, but there's nobody there. So her aunt is freaking out, like, I know I saw someone out there with you. Another time, she was sitting on the couch talking to herself, and her mom is like, "What are you doing?" Which she responds, "Do you see them? They're all..." Lynn says that when all of this was happening, they lived in an apartment. They ended up moving out for whatever reason. And she says that once they left, she never mentioned him. She never talked about him. She never saw him again. She never drew him. And it was like if he stayed behind, meaning he was probably haunting that specific apartment. What do you guys think? Thank you so much to Lynn for sending me this spooky story. If you guys have any stories that you'd like me to share,
shout out to Sauce
please
the
send them via
Boss,
DM
of
or email,
course,
and I'd
man.
love
Who's
to
in
read
the
them. And I
building,
will
man?
see you guys in the next spooky
Chat
story.
on. Who else, man?
Can people call
Sauce
you
the
after they're
Boss,
dead?
man. Of
Maybe
course.
you're high. I used to talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I opened an email that allowed everyone who finds this TikTok page to send in their ghost stories. And let me tell you, not only have I been getting a lot of ghost stories from every corner of the world, and I've wholeheartedly enjoyed reading these stories, I have realized that these stories are genuinely terrifying, but this one is wholesome, so let's get into it. This story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons, I'm going to respect that. One of the very first things that this girl says in her email is, this story still gives her chills to this day, and it happened 6 years ago. This specifically happened to her dad, whose best friend tragically passed away in a motorcycle accident. So the day of his passing, her dad gets a phone call from his best friend's wife, asking, have you seen him? He got off from his shift about an hour and a half ago. I can't get a hold of him. He's not answering his phone. Her dad calls his best friend's phone about 10 times, wondering where he is, trying to track him down. And all this girl remembers is waking up at 1:30 in the morning to her dad screaming. And at the time, it was because his best friend's wife had called him and broke the news to him on what exactly happened and why they weren't hearing from him. And unfortunately, that involved a drunk driver. So fast forward a year later, the exact day of his passing, it's about 11:30 p.m. Her and her family were all around a campfire, and all of a sudden, her dad gets a phone call from his best friend's phone number. His friend had very young kids at the time, so he thought it was a joke. He picks up the phone, and he suddenly makes this face and puts the phone on speaker. And his dad asks, who is this? Is this a joke? And that's when they hear, Bill, I'm okay. And the phone hangs up, and when they try to call it again, it says that the line is disconnected. What's really chilling is the fact that the last thing that her dad called his best friend and said is, Just tell me that you're okay. And the girl who sent me this email says at the end of it that she truly believes that our loved ones come and visit us. And she feels this way because of her dad's story and because after her grandfather's passing, she had 3 cardinals come and visit her, which were his favorite bird. Additionally, a couple weeks after his funeral, his wife, her grandmother, was harvesting his crops because he loved to garden and pulled a potato out, and it looked like this. And I honestly would have to agree with that notion because I've had my own personal experiences and I know a lot of other people who have had similar experiences with their loved ones who have passed on visiting them as well. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Was this man named Bruce. Now, Bruce was from Victoria, Australia, and he said this one particular weekend, him and his girlfriend decided to do some camping in the upper highlands of Victoria. Now, he said they went to a place called Wangamunga Valley, and they had found like this really awesome area to camp. Now, they set up their campsite, and he said the rest of the night, it was really romantic. They watched the stars and everything.
About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the building.
Wake up. And he said he didn't know why, but he felt compelled to get out of his tent, and he walks over to this watering hole. When he looks down, he said he sees this man, and he's like washing something in the watering hole. He said he had on this leather like jacket, leather boots, and like this leather hat. He looked like he was in his 70s, and he had these plugs in his ears that were deer antlers. And he said he kind of had this long scruffy hair and a scraggly beard. And he said this man was just bent over washing something in the watering hole. And he looked up and he just started staring at Bruce. Well, Bruce got like kind of freaked out and went back to the tent. He figured, there must be someone else in the area. He goes to bed. Next morning, they wake up. They find that their campsite is kind of like all disheveled. The chairs are moved around. Their table's knocked over. Their stuff's been ruffled through. And they're kind of like, maybe it's that guy, that I seen the other night. And so that day, they went out. They did some hiking. And he said they found like all of these footprints. And they were like leading to their campsite, but then they would sort of just vanish. Like whoever made these footprints somehow just
Sauce
like,
the boss,
air.
yo, sauce the boss, of course.
He said that night when they went to bed, they woke up and they heard what sounded like the dingoes howling outside of their tents. So Bruce goes out of the tent and he's looking around.
Sauce the boss in the building.
Man standing there, staring at him. And he said, what looked like dingoes, dogs, kind of around him, circling. So he got back in his tent and he's like, that guy is back. Like, I don't know what we should do. Let's just stay in the tent. Next day they wake up, once again, they do some hiking. They find like weird footprints. Well, that night they go to bed. And then when they wake up, they like hear whispering sounds all around them. Bruce gets out of the tent again and he discovers somehow their tent has moved from the campsite and they are now about a mile away from where they were camped. So the next morning they pack their stuff and they're like, you know what, we're out of here. I don't know what's going on. And they make it back into town. Well, a couple weeks later, his girlfriend had been taking like all of these photographs. And as she's going through the photos, she discovers 3 photographs, which are pictures of them sleeping that neither of them had taken.
Let's talk about a haunted Cabbage Patch doll. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about super scary stuff, and I actually have a link in my bio where anyone who finds this page can send me their ghost stories. The story I'm about to tell you is one of those. So let's get into it. The person who sent me this email did not include whether or not they wanted to remain anonymous, so I'm going to keep them anonymous. The person who sent me this email says that this all started when she was like 4 or 5 years old, specifically when her dad brought home a Cabbage Patch doll from her grandparents' house. From my understanding, this was not like a new with tags in the box present from the grandparents. I think it was just something that the dad found while he was at his parents' house to bring home for his daughter. And obviously she's 4 or 5 years old, so she's playing with this doll every day until one day when her mom realizes that she is playing with this Cabbage Patch doll and asks her, where did you get that? Why are you playing with it? And just takes the doll away. Something I think is super interesting is this girl still doesn't know why her mom took away this doll. But fast forward 2 or 3 years, this girl is like 6, 7 years old at this point, and this girl has family in town. It's just her cousin and her aunt who came to stay with them, but aunt and mom went out for the day. Nanny came over, and Nanny had to go to the supermarket. And while everyone is out of the house and it's just these 2 little girls in this house, they start thinking of ways to prank people when they come home. As they're trying to think of ways to prank people, they go into this hallway and they see the Cabbage Patch doll. Immediately, they're like, yes, we're going to scare people with this doll. They take this doll into the nanny's room, pull the sheets back, put the doll down, put the sheets over the face. You get the gist. So there's just this creepy Cabbage Patch doll laying in this bed with the sheets over its face. And I'm assuming the thought process was nanny comes home, nanny goes into her room, she gets scared, hee hee ha ha, we pranked you. And that's exactly what happened. The nanny got home, put the groceries away, went up to her room, pulled the covers back, was super afraid of this doll. As this turned into a hee hee ha ha moment, they took the doll back and decided that they were going to play the exact same prank on their moms. So they went into the room that mom and aunt are sharing at this time, pull the sheets back, put the doll down, put the sheets over the head, and wait for them to get home. When mom and aunt get home, they're, waiting in the living room, waiting to hear them scream, something, and that never happens. So they go up to the room and they see that both mom and aunt are kind of like laying in the bed talking to each other. No doll in the bed. These two little girls are like, was there anything under the sheets? Like, you guys didn't get scared? Mom and aunt both say, no, what are you talking about? There was nothing under the sheets. And then it comes out that they were playing with this doll that the mom of the person who sent me this email took away from her when she was like 4 and specifically told her not to play with this doll again. So her mom starts freaking out and is like, you need to find that doll like right now. And obviously these two little girls are super confused and they're like, okay, like we'll find the doll. And her mom again is like, no, you need to find it today. They searched this house all afternoon, top to bottom, could not find the doll. And after a while, this girl's like, I can't find it. It's the mom and the aunt left in the middle of this too to go get dinner or something. And while they're still out, this is when the two little girls are like, we can't find it. We're giving up. And at this point, the girl who sent me this email said it was a lost cause. Like they were absolutely not finding this thing because they had checked everywhere. So she proposes to her cousin like, hey, I'm going to go grab the laptop that's in the office and we can watch like cartoons or something on there. She walks to the office alone, opens the door and screams because this Cabbage Patch doll was sitting on the chair in the office. And by the time her cousin got to the office as well, they were both just absolutely mortified because there's no way that they would have missed this doll sitting in a chair. I guess after this instance, they told their parents and they collectively just like gave the doll away to somebody. I don't know if that means it was donated. I don't know if it means it was just given
about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Sauce, the boss in the building.
And I guess she looked very similar to this.
Sauce the boss, yo.
So if
Sauce
you
the
ever needed a
boss, of
reminder
course.
on why you shouldn't buy dolls from thrift stores, this would be one of them. Because this is not the first story, it's probably not the last that I'm going to hear where at the end of the story where they have a haunted doll, stuffed animal, something moving, where they give it away or donate it. And absolutely no shade, because if I had a doll, stuffed animal, something moving in my house by itself, I would too give it away to something or someone. I actually have had conversations where I've talked about giving things away to people because they have something weird attached to them. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
What police found inside this family home is like something from a horror film. 4 family members brutally murdered with a bloody axe laying next to their bodies. It was the 18th of February 1988 in Rochester, Minnesota. On the outskirts of the town, in a modest house, lived a family of 5. These were Bernard and Paulette, who were the parents, and they had 4 children. Joe, age 19, David, age 16, Diane, 13, and Ricky, age 9. Joe had actually just recently moved out of the family home because he wanted to pursue a career in teaching. So it was just the 5 of them left in the house. And moving out of that house may just have saved his life. The family seemed to the outside world absolutely perfect. They were middle class, they went to church, they never had any issues with any neighbors, they kept themselves to themselves, which is why it was so horrific when a murder scene was discovered behind closed doors. Now, police came to investigate after 16-year-old David had apparently confessed to his friend from school that he'd murdered his whole family. He'd met up with her just prior to going to school that day and asked her to bunk off with him. And she agreed, but he then made a chilling confession that she didn't really know whether it was like just a fantasy, just like a role play thing and just something he was saying for a bit of shock value, or whether it was the truth. He said, I can get anything I want now, my parents are dead. She kind of just went along with this because she said, at the time they used to kind of say crazy things sometimes to each other, and she just didn't know whether he was just playing up, he was just like making a bit of a joke. They ended up going to the shops together and back to a friend's house for a bit, and David ended up just spending basically the entire day wandering around, seeing some of his friends, and just doing normal kind of teenage stuff when you're bunking off from school. But eventually, police got a call from concerned neighbors asking them to do a welfare check. One officer described showing up at the home to eerie silence, and they shouted "Sheriff's Office" and got absolutely no reply. There was no sign of life. Then stated, "I got up maybe 4, 5, 6 steps and I could see 2 sets of feet at the top of the steps." And that's when they discovered the bodies. 2 parents plus Diane and Ricky lay with gashes in their heads and upper bodies and blood absolutely everywhere. Nearby, a blood-stained axe lay on the ground. So everybody was wondering, how could this have been David's doing? This kind of murderous rampage just did not fit the David they all had in their heads. Everyone at school knew him as this friendly, cheerful guy who was even trusted by many neighbors to babysit for them. The story that he told his school friend was absolutely hideous. She said he told her that he went into his parents' room with the axe and struck his dad in the head with it multiple times. He'd apparently had to do this several times as his dad kept like raising up when he was knocked to the ground. He kept like getting up and trying to fight back. Horrifically, his mum witnessed this and then David attacked her too. He then headed into little Ricky's room and Ricky was screaming according to David, and so was Diane. And David would argue that this was all over an argument that he'd had with his dad. He claimed his dad was very strict and had hit him round the face on multiple occasions, but obviously, we've just got David's word for this. The other family members can't really now explain what actually happened. It also doesn't explain why he would kill his whole family if the beef was just with his dad. I also was thinking while researching this, I can't imagine how Joe must have felt being told not only that all of these members of your family are dead, but your brother is the killer. David was ultimately captured by police the day after near the local post office. And like I said, David really tried to claim that he was hit by his dad and it messed him up in the head and obviously then like led to this horrific tragedy. And based on the severity of the crime, although he was 16 at the time, he was tried as an adult. He tried to claim insanity, but he was convicted of first-degree murder and given 3 consecutive life sentences.
This is your trigger warning immediately. The story has blown my mind. This is absolutely insane. My experience with a demonic haunting in Las Vegas. This is quite a long read. I apologize in advance. I've been following these paranormal subs for a while and would like to share my own experiences. October of 2010, I was 20. I had reconnected with my biological father after not seeing him since I was 3 years old. He was addicted to schmugs for most of my childhood. I will also get it out of the way that he is gay only because his former partner who lived with us during these events is relevant to the story. How was I conceived, you ask? There's still some debate to that, which is irrelevant here. Anyway, when I first moved in, man, it was great to have a real dad. My stepdad was an abusive piece of shit, so I was on top of the world even though the situation was far from perfect. We'd listen to records talk for hours over drinks and cigarettes. I told him all about my life and learned about his siblings, his parents, our family history. We spent that first summer in record stores, dive bars. That didn't card me. And walking Fremont Street, where most Vegas locals go, not the Strip, by the way. Did I mention this was Vegas? Not the first place you think of when you think of paranormal phenomena, haunting, and possession, am I right? But it's all there. I think we were ripe for attracting some kind of negative energy or entity to us because along with those good times came a lot of struggles. I was having an existential dilemma. I had decided God and gods didn't exist, that I didn't want to be practicing pagan anymore, didn't believe in anything at all. At the time, my psyche was getting kind of dark the longer I was there. I was lonely, it was hot, my job was hard, my dad's former partner, let's call him Gus, who was still living with us, was a really severe drunk and absolutely brokenhearted that my dad wanted out of their 16-year-long relationship. To be honest, it made me sad too. This also strained them financially because prior to his drunkenism, Gus was more the breadwinner and better at managing finances. My dad, for some reason, just can't pay and manage bills. Lights and gas were constantly being shut off, their vehicles repossessed. Their life together was disintegrating in every way. I think Gus hoped that by me coming out there, it might bring them back together. When it was clear that it wasn't the case, it all got worse. We were never really home that summer because we had no central air. We also had a bad cockroach infestation that my dad constantly said he was getting an exterminator for, but never really did. For whatever reason, mainly boredom, I was watching really disturbing horror films and Martyrs and a Serbian film. I was watching weird PORN. I was exploring the tenets of Satanism and watching documentaries on Aleister Crowley and the occult. I didn't practice anything occult in that house, but I was consuming a lot of dark shit. The first experience I had with the supernatural was on an especially hot day, and I acknowledge this may have been some kind of heat-induced hallucination, but I'm a rational person. I was trying not to move a muscle because I was so hot. It was midsummer with no central air or AC, and I was in a recliner in the living room, which provides a view of the hallway. I saw a black shadow figure emerge from a closed closet door in the hallway and move down the hallway where it disappeared towards the end of the hall. That was my room, and my dad's room was on the other side. Moments later, I saw my dad, or so I thought, quickly walk into my bedroom from his room, which was right across the hall. But seconds later, he walked in from the backyard. This is where the laws of physics seemed to bend in our home, where I was seeing something impersonating my dad. So even if for whatever reason he went from the bedroom through my window to the backyard, it would be impossible. There was a gigantic, ancient, rusted swamp cooler covering my window. And he's 6'5", 250 pounds. There's no way for him to get from my bedroom to our backyard. Still, I had to tell him, I just saw you walk into my room. He said, why would I be in your room? I've been in the backyard, but you're not the person to see that. He went on to tell me that guests who have stayed with them have been spooked by talking to someone, usually over their shoulder or just out of full view, who they believe is my dad, only to discover he was nowhere nearby. I dismissed this as, like I said, heat-induced hysteria. It's Nevada. It's hot. People see things out of the corner of their eye that aren't there. Case closed. So this is going to be a multiple part story. There is like 8 more pages, I think, to this story. A lot of things grabbed my attention about this story. One of them being the length, the other one being all of the trigger warnings at the beginning of this. They were very specific, as well as the title of this one. Definitely done some stories on Nevada, some that were in Vegas, some that were not in Vegas, some that were on just like random roads in Nevada. But as far as Vegas, a lot of people know where Vegas is and or have been there or seen movies about it, i.e. The Hangover, but they don't really know that there is a lot of actual like hauntings that happen there, and a lot of people have actually reported crazy, weird, haunted stuff happening, even though Nevada is one of the later states to come into statehood. So I definitely found it interesting that this was specific to Las Vegas. So I am really intrigued to read this story, and I'm really excited to get through all of it. It seems to be really well written so far, and I love the detail that we're
Who else,
receiving.
man?
So this is going to be a multiple-parter, unfortunately. I'm sorry, don't
Sauce,
quote me.
Sauce.
But that being said, I love you guys
Sauce,
so much.
the
I
boss
cannot wait
in
to
the
post part
building.
2 of this video, and
Sauce,
manifesting
the boss in the building. Sauce about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to
or send you into a state of paranoia. It is 2:00 in the morning on June 20th, 1996. An off-duty ambulance worker spotted an abandoned vehicle off of a busy highway, Highway 476. This highway has hundreds of thousands of people drive it every single day. When this ambulance worker approached the vehicle, he seen a few things that made him feel uneasy, so he called the law. When the police showed up, they observed a small gray vehicle with the driver door open. The radio was blaring, the lights were on, the car was running. There was some blood observed in front of the vehicle on the ground in like a pool form. There was also a crowbar nearby. It clearly looks like an attack has taken place, but they have no idea who the car is registered to or who was driving it at that time. Back to the pool of blood that was found in front of the car on the ground, law enforcement had an interpretation done of the blood pool and came to the conclusion that someone had laid there for a short period of time, leaking this blood. Criminal analysis Dale Yeager said that this crime scene showed this person was attacked very quickly and was taken from the crime scene very quickly as well. Okay, so next to the car was a tire impression, and a forensic expert made a cast of this tire impression. Then they find out that the vehicle that had been abandoned on Highway 476 was registered to get information they would
kids would dream of. He even had the newest and most modern video game setup, so of course when Raul asked him to stay the night, he was happy to. And just like he expected, he had the time of his life in that sleepover. And it wasn't just like the toys and having fun with Raul, but even Raul's parents treated him like he was a part of the family. He remembers eating sweets and they even ordered pizza, which was really rare in his own household. He remembers even little details like when they were going to watch movies, they would let him choose the movie that the entire family was going to watch. He says that they would watch the movie and then they would go play video games, they would have snacks until they eventually would go to bed. However, not everything was perfect. There was just something about when nighttime came that was not good. He realized that something was not right the first night he spent the night in that house, and he was tossing and turning. He explains that what he started to hear was almost like if somebody was knocking on the bedroom window. He thought to himself that maybe it was a branch of a tree that was making that kind of sound, so he didn't even bother opening his eyes to look outside that window. However, a few moments later, he heard that tapping on the window again. He did pretend to be asleep while somebody was tapping on that window, but he admits that that really scared him, not knowing who was on the other side. He ended up falling asleep until it was morning time, and then he didn't tell anybody anything because he forgot, since he was dreading going back home in the morning. So a week passed and it was the weekend again, and Raul again asked him if he wanted to spend the night, and he was so excited that he said yes and completely forgot about the window incident. However, they had fun. They went to bed, he couldn't fall asleep, and somebody was tapping on that window again. However, this time, after knocking or tapping on that window and him pretending to be asleep, he heard something different after. What he heard was somebody attempting to open that window. And he says that they were being successful because he could hear that window opening. He literally stood up, looked at the window, and he saw when a hand pulled back and hit. He said that the hand was long with his fingers all weird, and that to him, it was like a demon hand or something. He woke up Raul, who also looked and saw that the window was open, and they ran to the parents' bedroom and woke them up. The parents were obviously very alarmed, went, and they didn't see anything. The window wasn't even open. The parents also explained to him that they had an alarm system. They walked him to the alarm system and even went as far as giving him the code because they wanted him to feel comfortable, and if anything was wrong or if he ever needed to come over and they weren't home, he could put in that alarm code and come inside. And of course, that did calm him down, and him and Raul went back to the bedroom and they went to bed. And of course, with time, he completely forgot about that incident and he continued to go over to Raul's house. However, he does admit that every time in the night, he would hear something. If it wasn't a tap on the window, it was something completely different. Unfortunately, he says that the sounds coming from the yard or from the window weren't even the worst of it. There was one night he really needed to go to the restroom. As he's going to the restroom, he could see the front yard of the house through this big window, and he swears that he sees a really tall, bald man just staring into the house. He said the man didn't have like any hair in his face, like it was no eyebrows, just his eyes, his lips, like he was very pale. So when he saw him the first time, it was on a Thursday. The following day, he sees him again, but this time he is a little bit closer to the house. By the time Saturday came, he was right next to the window of that house. He did say that he thought to himself, like, why am I seeing this ghost? I cannot bring it up. If I continue to bring this up to the family, they're going to stop inviting me over and they're not going to let me hang out with Raul anymore. However, there was one last occasion where he saw this bald man. He woke up because he was really thirsty and he was going to...
It's his birthday. Everybody wish him happy birthday.
Oh, this is big right here, y'all. Everybody wish Sauce, the official boss.
Oh, man.
Happy
We're
birthday,
back
man. Let's go.
You know,
Let's see it in the timeline.
If you feeling down, just get you a bag of that.
I like the...
Just light up.
I like the wish.
Can't fire Mr. Head Can't greet him with two, only the third eye. Killer vision, PS,
I like the wish.
hospital.
Sauce the boss.
Accidents,
Happy birthday.
Conscience, unconscious.
I like to give a big shout out to Ashley Gordon. Somebody said Ashley Gordon. Charlie Fields.
Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge, therefore I'm flying.
I like how that sounds,
Extraterrestrial blunt, I got it on
I like to give a big happy birthday to Sauce the boss.
They fear what they don't understand. I forgive them because they don't really know no better. Hope let them walk on water.
I like to give a big shout out to Biggie Chapo, the official
How
capo.
bad do you want success? I was holding my breath unconsciously. The conscious me woke up and came off the head. I turned with this signal to the both of them.
Really being held captive. Okay? It is a hostage. My fault. The beach is glassing. The beach is beating. We got some shit to unbox because you know we have new decks on the way. Wait, new waves for the play bay. Tell them to go play with their mother. Coño, pero yo.